Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 153 in the book of Genesis. Today's title is Worship by Sex, because that's what is going to happen in the story. It's a very important story. The reason is because the line of Jesus is at risk. So the sons of Judah who are in the line that goes to Jesus are almost burned to death, and ironically by their own father, by Judah himself. So Judah, at the start of the story, Judah has three sons. And the lives of the eldest two have been taken by the Lord because of the consequences, the righteous consequences, of wickedness. So Tamar, who was married to each of them, was supposed to be remarried to the surviving son in what's called the Levirate marriage. Now, the good news of that situation was it was for the provision and the protection of the widow, and it was to build up the house of the first brother, the first dead brother. The bad news is, though it provides for her, it shrinks the other son's inheritance and recalls the smiting of these two guys. And Judah is in no mood to lose his third son, because Tamar was married to this guy when he got smoted, and he was married to this guy when he got smoted. So he's in no, he's probably connecting the dots, and so doesn't want to marry Tamar to the third son, even though that's kind of the rules. So Tamar sees that even when this last guy is named Sheila, when Sheila is grown up, she's still not been given to her in marriage. So Judah, who's the boss man of all this, the father of all three of these guys, he has done the wrong thing over a long period of time because they were waiting for Mr. Sheila here to grow up. So Judah, in this whole thing, is sinning over a long time. He was supposed to do this. So he refused, and he said no to this known command from the Lord. So he even kind of denies the whole thing and sends Tamar back to her own her previous family, in violation of making a new family. So yes, there is an obligation that's established by marriage to a new family. An in-law relationship is not a normal kind of run-of-the-mill relationship. There are new special obligations that are established on a wedding day. So because of this situation, Tamar takes things into her own hands, and she's going to portray herself as a prostitute. And she's going to demonstrate to Judah and everybody else that he has done wrong and is currently doing wrong by this ruse. She is going to give him an opportunity to do the wrong thing, which he is going to do. So this is from Genesis chapter 38. I'm going to start in verse 13. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to a place, Timnah, to shear his sheep," she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance of Enam, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Sheila was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. She is his own daughter-in-law, and she is not a prostitute. But he's going to turn to her at the roadside and say, quote, "Come, let me come into you. Let's have sexual relations." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. This is his first mistake. She said, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" He answered, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." So they negotiate a price. And she said, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." And he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" And she replied, so she's going to name the pledge, which is your signet, your cord, and your staff. So she gave them to her. So these are all perfectly identifying objects. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived. So another bad news is the prostitution event results in a conception. Verse 19, then she arose, went away, and taking off her veil, she put on her garments of widowhood. So Judah does wrong here clearly. So his request reinforces our view of him, and his whole family for that matter, as a man of passion and personal gratification. So strike one, oops, I mistook my daughter-in-law as a prostitute. Strike two is that he engages with this prostitute and what he thinks is a prostitute. He wants to and does participate in this sexual encounter after he negotiates the price of a goat. Strike three, he is entrapped by these identifying objects, this signet, which might be like a cylinder that he wears around his neck, held on by a cord, and then his staff, which he uses all day, every day. And then strike 4, which I think is the worst part about this story, is later she's identified as a temple prostitute. So here's the key. It's not God's temple that we're talking about here. So this is not just sort of generically unholy prostitution where it takes sex away from the marriage bed. It's specifically and religiously unholy. So occult, satanic, evil, idolatrous dimension is added to the story. So cult prostitutes woke up in the morning and engaged in wrong worship by tying sexual activity to false gods. So she, as far as Judah knows, is in specific service to this deity who definitively is not the Lord. So she wakes up and says, hey, my God likes this, rather than saying the real God hates this. So it's the ultimate lie, it's the ultimate heresy, it's a denial of God. So it's not an activity to be engaged in by a future grandfather of Jesus. Sleeping with her is worship, or at least it's the tolerance of idolatry, and it breaks the covenant of marriage, and it breaks the covenant of Abraham, which is, hey, you get to be in relationship with me, the only one real God. So when Judah sent, so here's the end of the story. So when Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the men of the place, where is the cult prostitute who was here at the roadside? And they said, no cult prostitute has been here. So he returned to Judah and said, I've not found her. And also the men of the place said, no cult prostitute has been here. And Judah replied, let's keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat, and you did not find her. All right, so Judah does not provide a husband for number 3 son to Tamar. Judah goes into a prostitute because of his uncontrolled passions. He gets potentially identified. He gets tricked by the deception, and he violates this intimacy that he has with the Lord. So he breaks covenant with the one true covenant keeper. Now you have to come back tomorrow, because tomorrow is even more crazy, where Judah almost burns his own sons to death, and he wants to burn the daughter-in-law, Tamar. So Tamar is pregnant with his Judah's 2 sons, one of which is the grandfather of Jesus. So it's a very important story. Come back tomorrow. See you then.